Let's start now on the chat. And as I said, the chat is going to be about the inner planes. So if we come from the understanding that we are multidimensional beings, that means that, our little reality bite that we have right here, right now, that I'm here, I'm in my home. There are people in their homes, or wherever they may be. They're listening in the moment. They have a body, they have a mentality, they have emotions, and this is the reality that they recall when they go to bed at night and when they wake up. And that is because we're sort of like very into a concretized way that this is the reality we know, the one that's interactive, and that's it. But the truth of it is that we are really multidimensional beings. And so you may hear things like parallel universes, or, you are going down a myriad of timelines depending on the decisions that you make. Like, for example, you didn't, marry your high school sweetheart, and your, trajectory of your life went one way, versus if you did marry your high hole sweethearts, it would have gone another way, versus a myriad of other decisions that we make. And so you have these multiple trajectories that can actually take place all at one time. And so, why I want to talk about the inner planes is because we kind of get a glimpse if we're able to bring back the memory. Now, most of the time, when we go to sleep and we may have a dream, many times we don't dream at all, we just wake up. But sometimes some of us may notice you wake up and like you're tired. It's like, gee, I just slept, I had a really good sleep, but I'm waking up tired. Or you wake up, with a certain energetic around you. You're not sure why you're feeling the way you are. Well, that may very well have to do with what you just did. Some aspect of yourself was engaged in activity, even though you may not recall it. Now, there comes a point where there is a level of adepts that can actually be in a physical body like what we have now, and have total recall of operating on multiple planes or on a specific dynamic. Many of us are part of councils, and these councils are held ever so often. There's a call out. Now, what happens is that we may not be consciously aware of that, but there are many times that we are called, and that part of our higher part of ourselves answers that call. We answer it, because again, we're so much more than the limitation of a physical body. And then there's a lot more. There's the astral plane, you have the silver cord. That silver cord allows you to sort of be free of the body, and move around multiple dimensions, including the astral plane, but not limited to the astral plane. There's many other planes too. So depending on your frequency, where you are on your path, and I don't mean limited to this lifetime, I'm talking multiple lifetimes, you can be interacting on many, many levels. But let's just say and bring it to the basic, a basic inner planes. The inner planes is when we go to sleep. It's like that part of us now, or that part that is held into this body matrix, is sort of released. And so I remember my father told me that my grandmother said we travel in our sleep, that we travel in our sleep, we go places. And I was a little girl, and I never forgot that. It's somehow that resonated so deeply with me, and really made a connection with my father's mother, who I never met at the time. And turns out that, I had a real powerful connection with her later in my life, spiritually, on the inner planes, as it turns out. So that was my grandma Louise. So that little thought, that came into my mind was quite young, was like, wow, we travel in our sleep. And yeah, we do. Now, as the veil begins to thin and thin, there's a couple of things. There's one called the Mandela effect. You can look that up. That's where people think um, a certain way, a whole group of people. I think Monopoly is one of them, where so many people say that guy had the monocle. So many people remember the little Monopoly guy with the monocle. But then when you contact the manufacturers that make Monopoly, they say, no, he's never had a monocle. But there are people who swear that they did. He had a monocle. So it's like, wow, how come, people are perceiving things one way and a whole other group of people? And these are like minor things. They're not like major, major shifts, but just like different changes in timeline, in circumstances and in people that you interact with. Um, I had an experience once where I saw a family. It was a very specific place where I ended up seeing in South America, and I saw a husband that wasn't my husband in this life, and I saw a son that wasn't my son in this life. They didn't look the same, but I was somehow related to this man as a husband and a son, completely different from who what they looked like in the reality that I'm currently in right now. And then many people have had the Mandela effect, and that you can Google and see what that's all about. And so, also, too, there have been many people who have talked about. I had experience once where I absolutely thought that I was going to, have a car crash. I was going to have a fender bender. I actually prepared myself to be hit, and mathematically, just using basic, the laws of gravity and our physical laws, I should have been hit. I was not. And, that car kept on moving. I kept on moving. I looked in my back mirror because I couldn't believe it because I braced myself to be hit. And I even said, gee, did I pay my insurance? So, but it didn't happen. But that many people have said they had similar experiences like that too. Like somehow the laws or physical laws, there was a glitch. It didn't happen. So right now, what we want to talk about is so what happens when we do go to sleep? Well, most certainly, I would say that for many of us, we are not working our service work only in this physical reality that we find ourselves in, but we're also working on many other levels and many other dimensions. So, as I mentioned before, there are many people that sit on councils, and those parts of ourselves, the higher parts of ourselves that are interacting with other beings that are part of councils, we are there. I do have a memory of being someplace where I'm looking at all of these people. Actually, they were like all men, and they were dressed in these brown robes with the hoods. They looked like monks. And I was sitting at a table with them, and my memory, waking up on that was like, well, what was that all about? And then now, as we walk our spiritual path, there's more and more of us that are bringing back the memory of what we do. Now, I know of maybe really one or two people that they have the ability to bring back, recall pretty much 100% or close to 100% the inner planes and their experiences. That's the exception. However, that's beginning to shift. So there are people bringing back glimpses of what they do. Now, this is different from maybe you just had a dream and you just had indigestion. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where you have recall that you're meeting people, that you're in a big space. you're having conversations with people, or you're doing something. It's a different type of thing. You're actually working, interacting, doing something. A lot of times, we experience flying, or we're able to step through walls to get to the other side of things, or into another dimension. And then we have those abilities and these higher parts of ourselves. But now, more and more, we're beginning to bring it into our conscious memory, even as we are in this physical, mental, and emotional embodiment where we find ourselves. So I just want to say, a lot of times it isn't because you ate and had indigestion where you're having these things, that if you do have glimpses, and sometimes they're only glimpses, or you may see something in the day that reminds you of a dream. And when those things happen, because it's very subtle, but you can start to train yourself to be very attuned to these things. A lot of times we're just very distracted, and we just then you lose it, then you forget about it completely. But if you put the intention and you say, I really want to recall what it is I do when I go to sleep. I really would like to bring that into my awareness. And then you put that intention, and maybe you just start recording your dreams. I record my dreams. I used to write them, but it's easier to record them. And just the effort is not saying that doing that is the magic thing that makes it happen. It's the intention that you've put the effort in, that you want this to happen. And just by putting in that effort, that intention, it builds that synopsis, or that connection. Our endocrine system, may give out some sort of chemical to make that connection stronger. Who knows exactly how that all goes, but that part of yourself will start to develop. And you just have to be patient, because everything is going to happen at a divinely appointed time. But intentions are powerful. Your thoughts are powerful. Your words are powerful. So if you put forth that intention, you can start to recollect or move yourself along your path of mastery, to be able to bring back more and more of what you do in other realities of yourself. And I know for myself, that has been increasing personally for myself. I think my assignment is working on the astral plane, and cleaning up and clearing up the astral plane. I use the names of God when in my dream experience, and I now know the energy. It's a couple of different dimensions, and I've always like, what am I doing here in the astral plane? Is not a place I really intend to be. But then I've come to realize I'm working in the astral plane, and just had a recent dream all about that. So yeah, I thought that's really cool for us to know that as we are on the ascension path, these things are going to happen, and embrace it, because it's bringing in more the totality of who you truly are. How exciting is that? So, with that, I'm going to say namaste to our family of light on Facebook Live. We will see you next week. And again, if you'd like to join us in the future, simply register for the Anchor and Light transmission. Namaste.